Hey y'all, this is Frank Roberts at Maranatha Farms outside of Memphis, Tennessee, and I want to talk to you about how we have managed to keep our free-range flocks of turkey and guineas on our farm free range. It works. There is a way to do it that worked for us. Not saying it's the only way, and it may or may not work for you, but this is what we have done, so I'm going to tell you about that. If you like this kind of content, please like and subscribe to the channel. We are just getting this kicked off. Now we have a flock of 14 or 15 guineas that free range our property. They, along with our turkeys, maintain our property as almost tick free. I'm not saying it's completely, because we do occasionally get one off of the dog or the cat. Very rarely do we pick one up ourselves on us or our kids. We'll often ask about them, how do you keep them on your property? The simple answer is we don't. They absolutely go onto our neighbors' properties, which, you know, the negative side of that is that they sometimes eat our neighbors' chicken feed. The positive side of that is that they do also pick up ticks and bugs off of our neighbors' properties. So that also helps keep them from the bugs from coming on our property, but it's a net benefit for our neighbors. So what we do with our guineas is we raise them first in a brooder in the barn. And as soon as they start to get their flight feathers and explore other parts of the barn, we will collect them, and you can see them rummaging around through the leaves and such back there. We'll collect the guineas and we'll put them in a John Siskovich style tractor, which I'll show you right here. Yeah, so that's the John Siskovich style tractor that we use. So we'll keep them in that until they are big enough that we feel like they can fend for themselves, and that's when we release them. And that's the big question. How do we do that in such a way that we don't raise, coyote bait or somebody else's guineas? And the simple answer is that, here's the trick. We release one bird at a time. You release one bird out of a flock of a dozen or more guineas. And the same works for ducks, geese, all kinds of different birds. In fact, we're trying this with it worked actually with our peacocks as well. If you release one bird out, he wants to be, or she wants to be, with the rest of the flock. A couple days later, release the second bird. I would actually release the second bird sooner so that one is not by itself. So one day release one, the next day release another. A couple days later, release another bird. A couple days later, release another one. Keep doing that until you have released all of the birds. Once you get to the end, the last two birds, I would not leave one bird by itself in the chicken tractor. That's just cruel. So those last two, you can release them both all at once. But what's happened is, during the time that those birds have gradually been being let out of the chicken tractor, the first ones don't want to be away from the flock. Each subsequent releasing of the birds does not want to be away from the flock until eventually you've got most of the flock outside. Well, that flock does not want to be separated from itself either. So by the time you've released all of them, the birds have become accustomed to being on your property and not leaving. Sometimes, depending on the situation, you can snip the flight feathers off of one wing or both wings. Muscovy ducks are very good flyers, and so with them you can clip one wing, and that will keep them from being able to fly in a straight line. You can clip both wings, and that'll keep them from flying, and eventually they'll get their flight feathers back. But by the time they have their flight feathers back, you see the birds down there, by the time they have their flight feathers back, they've really forgotten about flying to some extent, and they're going to be much more at home on your property. You have to keep moving because these birds never sit still. They're going to be so at home on your property that they're not really going to want to move around. One advantage that we have is that we do have cattle and pigs, and so they will go and scratch through cow pies. They will go and get into the pig feed. They can be a little loud. Oh, they're mad about Aragorn. Here's Puppy. That's another part of keeping them, is having a good livestock guardian dog who's going to keep the predators away. So these guys here are at the bottom of the food chain. They're not particularly intelligent, but they are extremely flighty. You will not tame them. This is not going to be your Buff Orpington kind of chicken. They will hatch out eggs. They're not great mothers, but they can be. That is how we keep our guineas and our other birds here on the farm with only a 4-foot cattle fence. It does act as a little bit of a physical barrier for them, but not much. They can go straight through it or fly over it, as you saw here, very easily, but it just kind of is a bit of a suggestion of space for them. So they stay around here and they pick at bugs underneath there. We're hoping that over time, their continual presence and pecking at bugs, not just ticks, but other bugs, will reduce the pest load on our cattle, but even on our fruit trees. And so we're hoping that over time, they will reduce the pest load on our trees and on our grass and such. We've actually seen an improvement in the grass, even in the yard, fewer grubs in the yard because they're always going through. Right now they're pecking at bugs and acorns over here. So anyway, that is how we keep a flock of pearl guineas on our farm. That's how we keep our turkeys on the farm, is that they just get accustomed to being here, releasing them as they are growing off of being poults into juveniles, releasing them as a flock, a few at a time, into the pasture. And when you do that, they just stick together and they stick around. It does, like I said, it does help to have some fences around the perimeter. It does help to have a good livestock guardian dog like Aragorn, our Great Pyrenees / Anatolian Shepherd right here. He's a good dog. He loves killing possums and chasing off coyotes. Check this out, actually, over here. Look at this. There's a automatic water trough and the guineas are lined up going over there to drink water. Obviously we have a pond as well, but they know there's fresh water there. The cows do too. They feel safe around the cows. They know that the cows are not a threat, and having a large animal like that around, they know that they are going to be safe from others. But I will say that as soon as if you ever hear them squawking and howling, all you have to do is look, and there'll be a hawk, there'll be a buzzard, or another dog or something has come onto the farm, and they will let everybody know. Almost as good or better than geese. So anyway, those are our guineas. That's what I know. Y'all have a great day.